The night was calm when we reached that tiny flood-hit town, but something about it didn't feel right from the start. My dad and I were there on a charity trip, helping distribute clothes and supplies to families who had lost everything to the rains. It was supposed to be a good deed, but that trip left us with a memory we'll never forget. Our first night went fine. We stayed at a beachside hotel, modern and safe. The kind of place that smelled like clean sheets and overpriced coffee. But the second night, everything changed. When we called to extend our stay, Mom said the hotel was full. She'd already booked us a motel nearby, about 10 minutes away. She mentioned it casually. It's the only place with vacancy. Just stay the night. The moment we pulled up, I knew this wasn't just some motel. Sat alone by a dead lake. The surface of the water covered with a film of greenish scum. Trees surrounded the property, blocking out the moonlight. The sign out front said Lakeside Rest, but half the letters had fallen off, so it just read Law Rest. A single bulb flickered above the front office door. Inside, an old lady greeted us with a brittle smile. Her voice was thin and sweet, too calm for the setting. She handed over the key, explaining where everything was, how the vending machine didn't work, but the lake hadn't been full for 20 years. Then her husband came out from the back room. He was something else. His eyes were sunken, ringed in gray. His skin looked like damp parchment stretched over bone. He didn't speak, not a word, just stared at my dad, then at me. That stare, cold, unblinking, stuck with me. We got our room key, number 7, and drove around the side of the building. The gravel crunched under the tires as we passed rows of empty rooms. The lights were off in all of them, except ours. I remember saying, half-jokingly, "Looks like we're the only guests." Dad didn't laugh. We tried to keep things normal that evening, had pizza in town, caught a movie to pass time. But when we came back, the motel looked different. The lights along the walkway were out, and the air smelled like wet earth. As we pulled our luggage from the truck, Dad froze. "Did you put this here?" he asked. He pointed to a bag wedged under the spare tire. It was small, dirty, and filled with children's clothes. Tiny shirts, socks, a little pink jacket. They were all mud-stained. We didn't know what to think. Maybe someone had misplaced their donation. Dad decided to drop it at the nearby trailer park, but when we mentioned it to the motel owner, his reaction changed everything. The old man's eyes widened, his face twitching. He hissed, "Don't go there." Dad asked why, but the man just shook his head, whispering, "There's no one left there anymore." He turned around and disappeared into the back office before we could ask more. That night, after showers, we tried to sleep. At 2:17 a.m., I woke up. Dad was snoring, softly at first, then louder. I grabbed my phone to read. The light from the screen was the only thing keeping me from feeling the weight of the dark. Then I heard it. The low hum of a car engine outside, tires crunching on gravel. Then another car, then another. It stopped right outside our room. The headlights flickered through the thin, curtain-bright blue light cutting across the floor. I thought maybe travelers were checking in late, but then came whispers. Not normal talking, whispers that overlapped, fast and broken, like static trying to form words. I froze. The whispers stopped, then click, click, click. The door handle moved. It rattled. Once, twice, then stopped again. The blue light vanished, and the whispers fell silent. I couldn't move. Every part of me felt locked in place. My heart was hammering so loud I thought whoever was outside could hear it. After what felt like hours but was probably just minutes, I leaned over and shook Dad awake. Dad, someone was at the door. He blinked, groggy. "You sure?" When I nodded, he gave a tired laugh. "You think that's scary?" "I've been hearing scratches inside the wall for the past hour." I stared at him. "What do you mean scratches?" He shushed me. "Listen." We both went still. The night outside was dead quiet. But from right behind our bed's headboard came the faintest sound. Scratch, scratch. All slow. Deliberate. Dad's eyes widened now too. He didn't joke anymore. We both got up, grabbed our stuff, and bolted for the door. When I turned the handle, the metal felt icy cold. We left the room key on the bed and stepped outside into the mist. The parking lot was empty. No cars, no sound. Just the flickering office light in the distance. We didn't even check out. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Through the fog, the motel faded from view, except for one thing. In the window of our room, I swear I saw movement. A small shadow shifting behind the curtain. And for a brief second, 2 tiny hands pressed against the glass. We left at 2:32 a.m. Neither of us ever went near that lake again. That bag of children's clothes. We found it again the next morning, in the back of the truck, exactly where it was before. The sky over Ohio was a dark, bruised gray when my vision started to swim behind the wheel. The rain had just let up, but the empty highway still stretched on into what felt like forever. I've been driving for 8 straight hours, the kind of long, grueling drive where the silence itself starts to hum louder than the engine. My eyelids felt like they were made of lead, and I just knew if I didn't pull over soon, I'd become one of those tragic stories you hear on the late-night news. Then, through the lingering mist, I saw it. A flickering neon sign. Xenia Country INN vacancy. The letters buzzed and crackled. Half dead, a perfect match for the look of the place itself. But I was so exhausted. At that point, a bed was a bed. I didn't care what it looked like. I pulled into the parking lot. The pavement was cracked and uneven, with giant puddles reflecting the dying, sickly light of that neon sign. There were only 2 other cars there, both of them covered in a thin, grimy film of dust-like. They hadn't moved in days, maybe weeks. The office was a small, glass-walled corner of the main building. Inside, an old man sat hunched behind the counter, a newspaper trembling in his wrinkled hands. A rusty fanned word beside him, but it sounded more like it was coughing than spinning. When I walked in, he didn't even bother to look up. "Room?" I asked, my voice hoarse. He finally lowered his paper, and his eyes were dull and almost empty. There was nothing behind them. 65, he rasped, the word scraping its way out of his throat. I handed him my card. There was no smile, no have a nice day, no receipt, just a cold metal key on a plain ring. No room number tag, just a key. Outside, the air was thick, wet, and heavy. My shoes sank into the soft, muddy gravel as I crossed the lot to find my room. The lock was stiff and rusted. I had to twist and shove the key with all my weight just to get the door to budge open. And the smell. The smell hit me first. It was a suffocating wave of mildew, stale sweat, and something else. Something sour and sickly that lurked underneath it all. The room looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 80s. The carpet was a faded blue, stained a dark, ugly brown at the corners. Sagging bed with sheets that looked older than I was dominated. The small space. I tried to lock the door behind me, but the latch barely moved. It felt loose and flimsy. I gave up after half a minute, thinking to myself, whatever it'll hold. That was a big, big mistake. I practically collapsed onto the bed. The springs screamed in protest under my weight. I fumbled for the TV remote, but it was dead, so I just shut off the lights and closed my eyes, desperate for sleep. The silence in that room was so thick you could almost feel it pressing in on you. And then, thump. A sharp, sudden bang at the window made me jolt upright, my heart instantly hammering against my ribs. I crept to the window and peered through a crack in the dusty, moth-eaten curtain. I saw a man standing just outside. His face was hidden in the deep shadows, but his eyes caught the weak glow from the streetlight, shining like 2 tiny, cold points of light. He spoke softly at first, his voice trembling with a strange urgency. Hey man, please, I'm hurt. Please, you gotta let me in." He lifted his arm into the faint light. There was something dark on it, blood, or what looked like it. I froze, every muscle in my body screaming at me not to move. "Go to the office," I yelled back, my voice shaking. But he didn't move. Steady stepped closer, pressing his palm flat against the cold glass of the window. "Please, I just need to call someone. My phone's dead. Please just open the door." There was something profoundly wrong about his voice. It was desperate, yes, but it was also rehearsed, practiced. Like he'd said those exact words, in that exact tone, many, many times before. "No," I shouted again, firmer this time. He stopped. He tilted his head to the side, a slow, deliberate movement. And then, in the darkness, I saw the edges of his mouth curl into a smile, a cold, chilling smile. And then he just turned and walked away, disappearing back into the darkness, as if he was never there. My heart wouldn't slow down. I stumbled back to the door and fought with the lock again, twisting and shoving until I heard the metal groan, nearly snapping. The whole frame rattled, but this time, it held. After what felt like an eternity, I managed to convince myself it was over. He was gone. I was safe. I turned on my side, pulling the thin, scratchy blanket over me. Sleep eventually came, but it was heavy and uneven, full of shadows, but sometime much later, I woke up. A clicking noise was echoing softly in the room, a rhythmic tap. Tap, tap, like fingernails tapping on glass. I opened my eyes. The room was dark, except for the faint, flickering blue glow of the TV screen. I didn't remember turning it on, and I felt a draft of cold air on my feet. I looked down. The blanket was gone. I sat up slowly, my blood turning to ice, and that's when I saw him. A tall, slender figure standing at the foot of my bed, completely still. His face was lost in the shadows, a featureless void. Before I could even draw a breath to scream, he leaned forward, moving with a silent, unnatural grace, and put a single long finger to his lips. "She," he whispered, the sound barely disturbing the air. "Shh, don't move." My breath froze in my throat. I couldn't have screamed even if I wanted to. "I won't hurt you," he murmured, his voice a low, calm whisper that was somehow more terrifying than any shout. "Just don't make a sound. Now, where's your wallet?" It was like being trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My own voice came out as a cracked, strangled sound, in my jeans, on the floor. He crouched down, moving like something that didn't belong in a human body, too fluid, too silent. His hands expertly searched the pockets, the metal of my belt buckle jingling softly in the dead quiet of the room. Then, without another word, he stood up and backed away, melting back into the darkness he came from. I heard the door creak open, and then click shut. For a long, long time, I couldn't move. I just sat there, my chest heaving, my throat painfully dry. When I finally found the strength to get up, I ran to the door still broken, still barely holding, and slammed the pathetic latch shut. I didn't sleep again that night, just sat there, my back against the wall, staring at the door until the first weak rays of sun rose and filtered through the grimy curtains. When the police finally arrived, they checked the motel's security footage. Sure enough, a man had entered my room around 2:40 a.m., but his face was completely covered by a mask and a baseball cap. He was a ghost. The front desk clerk, the same old man from the night before, didn't even look surprised. He just looked at me with those empty eyes and said, "Shouldn't have stayed here, son. This place attracts trouble." I left without asking for a refund. I just got in my car and drove until the daylight burned my tired eyes. And to this day, I swear every time I check into a motel, especially if it's late at night, I still hear that sound. It's that low, rhythmic clicking stuff. And I can't help but glance at the shadows at the foot of my bed. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay safe out there. And if you enjoyed this story, please consider liking and subscribing for more. The air in the mountains felt clean, till it didn't. My ex and I had come here to fix our relationship, or at least try to. A weekend getaway, a chance to reconnect, that's what she called it. It was supposed to be this picturesque scene, you know. Cozy cabin, crackling fire, maybe some hiking. But by the second night, the only thing reconnecting was her anger with my patience. It was a storm inside before the storm outside even started. Screaming, accusations, tears, ... You name it, we had it. It was like a greatest hits album of all our worst fights played on a loop. By midnight, I'd had enough. I couldn't spend another second in that same room with her fury echoing off the cabin walls. It felt like the wood itself was soaking up the poison. So I did what any sane person would do. I grabbed my keys, jumped in my car, and drove. No destination, just away. The rain was starting to fall again, light at first, then steady, drumming on the roof of the car. The mountain road wound like a snake through the forest dark, endless, the headlights barely cutting through the thick blackness. And then out of nowhere, a flickering sign emerged from the mist. Rest Haven Motel Vacancy. I almost laughed at the cliche. It was one of those roadside motels that looked like it had seen a fresh coat of paint since the 1970s, maybe even earlier. The neon sign buzzed, casting this bloody red hue over the empty parking lot. It looked like the set of a horror movie. Still, a room was $50, and honestly, I just needed to crash. Anywhere was better than back at the cabin. I walked into the office. Smelled like stale coffee and old paper. A sleepy man behind the counter barely looked up as I paid. He slid a metal key across the counter room, 12, and went right back to his newspaper without another word. As I stepped outside, thunder rolled in the distance, a low, deep rumble that shook the ground. The motel stretched out in a long, straight line, 12 rooms, one after another, all identical. Every single door was shut tight except for one. Room 11, right next to mine. Its door was open just a few inches, swaying back and forth in the wind. A dim blue light spilled out from inside the flickering of a TV. I hesitated for a second. It just felt off. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. Just the sound of the wind and the distant thunder. I told myself it was none of my business and walked on. My shoes squelched in the puddles as I made my way to my room. The door to room 12 creaked open with a groan, like it was in pain. Inside, it smelled of bleach and dust. The bedspread had this faded floral pattern, the kind that looks like it's witnessed to many years and way too many secrets. I shut the door behind me, double-locked it, and threw my bag on the floor. TV worked, surprisingly. Static hissed for a moment, then cleared to some late-night rerun. I didn't even care what it was. I just needed the noise to fill the oppressive silence of the room. I laid down on the bed, still in my damp clothes, scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself. And that's when it started. Thump. Then again, thump. It was coming from the wall my side of the wall, the one I shared with room 11. I muted the TV, listening, so the sound didn't stop. It wasn't random, like something falling over. It was rhythmic, deliberate. Bang, ... bang. Like a fist hitting the drywall, over and over. A cold chill ran down my spine. "Hello?" I shouted through the wall. "You okay in there?" No reply. The banging stopped instantly. Dead silence. And then Naya heard footsteps. Soft ones. Not from the hallway. From inside that room. Someone was definitely in there. I couldn't just lie there and ignore it. What if someone was in trouble? Curiosity, or maybe just plain stupidity, pushed me to go check. I unlocked my door and stepped back out into the rain. The door to room 11 was still ajar, just like before. The same eerie blue glow from the TV lit up the inside. I pushed the door open a little wider and called out again, a little louder this time. "Hey, you all right?" Still no answer. So I stepped in. The room was empty. The bed was perfectly made, completely untouched. The curtains were drawn tight. The only thing on was the TV, its screen a solid blue, with no sound. It was just humming. And then I noticed it a single yellow sticky note, stuck right in the center of the TV screen. It had 3 words scrawled in dark, messy ink. "Check under the bed." I froze. The hum of the TV suddenly seemed to grow louder, filling the room. The air felt heavier, colder. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to leave, to get out of there and not look back. But my curiosity, that stupid nagging voice in my head, it dragged me forward. I crouched down. Slowly. My fingers were trembling as I reached for the edge of the blanket. I lifted it. The space beneath the bed was dark. Too dark. My eyes struggled to adjust. And then I saw movement. A hand. Pale, rotted hand. Its fingers curling out from the shadows, clutching the floorboards, like it was trying to pull itself up. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my throat, a scream stuck in my chest. Something started crawling out slowly, silently, its face scraping against the wood floor. I bolted. I didn't even look back. I slammed the door to room 11 shut behind me and ran back to my own room. Fumbling with the chain lock, my hand shaking so badly I could barely get it in place. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was my ex. I answered, my voice shaking, trying to tell her what just happened, trying to make sense of it myself. There's something in the room next door. But as I spoke, it happened again. Bang, bang, bang. Right behind my head on the wall of my own room. She heard it too, through the phone. "What is that noise?" Before I could even respond, my eyes darted to the bathroom door and my roommate was open, just a crack. The light inside flickered once, and reflected in the mirror for just a split second. I swear I saw movement. That was it. I grabbed my keys and ran for the front office, bursting through the door, gasping for air. "Someone's in room 11. I yelled at the clerk. "They're banging on the walls. There's something under the bed. I think there's blood." The clerk looked up slowly from his newspaper. His eyes, they didn't flinch. There was no surprise, no concern. "Room 11, said in this calm, hollow voice that sent another wave of ice through my veins. "That room's been empty for weeks." My blood went cold. "No, I was just in there. The TV was on. There was a note." He just shook his head slowly, grabbed a key from the board, and walked with me back down the slick, wet pavement. He unlocked the door to room 11. We stepped inside. Everything was dark. The TV was off. There was no sticky note, no sound. The room was cold and silent. The bed, though. The bedspread was rumpled, as if someone had just crawled out from under it. The clerk leaned down and peered underneath. His flashlight flickered once, then he stood up, his eyes wide, his face pale in the dim light from the parking lot. Without a single word, he turned, locked the door, and whispered, his voice tight with fear, "You need to leave now." I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I just got in my car and drove. As I sped away from the Rest Haven motel, the rain hammering my windshield, I glanced in my rearview mirror one last time. And I saw it. The light in room 11 flicked back on. For a brief second, through the gap in the curtain, I saw a shadow move, hand pressed against the glass. And on the window, fogged by breath from the inside, were 3 words I'll never forget. Check under the bed. Thanks for sticking with me through that terrifying night. If you love spooky stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you daren't miss what comes next. Stay safe out there.